Hi everyone. This pitch was made by Milena and Alexander, and we are focused on the impact of wildfires on watersheds in the Bay Area and Los Angeles. Our role is going to be the consultant, and our main objective is to advise on sustainable, equitable wildfire and water management. Some perspectives that we consulted were fire scientists, water managers, policymakers, community stakeholders, and environmental NGOs. So, a little bit of a breakdown of the wildfire crisis in California. Some of the key drivers are climate change, drought, and land use changes. And then, once again, some of the affected regions that we'll be looking at are the Bay Area, which includes the Santa Cruz Mountains and the East Bay Hills, and then Los Angeles, which includes the Angeles National Forest and the Santa Monica Mountains. And then the impacts are increased wildfire frequency and severity. So, breaking down some of the innovative solutions for fire resilient watershed, we're going to be focusing on technical and social innovations along with some nature based solutions. So, for targeted fuel management, we're going to be focusing on controlled burns and mechanical thinning. For post fire stabilization, we're going to be looking at mulching, seeding, and checking dams. For green infrastructure, which kind of overlaps with nature-based solutions, we're going to be focusing on the riparian buffers and those wetlands. And then looking at community engagement, we're going to include education and local stewardship. And then kind of circling back to the nature-based solutions, we're going to be focusing on the wetland and riparian restorations. This includes filter pollutants, and it also can slow runoff. The benefits for focusing on this would be carbon sequestration and biodiversity. But some challenges that we might run into is that it's underfunded compared to some of the gray infrastructure. So, looking at equity and justice consideration, our biggest disparity would be that working class communities tend to face longer water disruptions just because they have smaller water systems which lack capacity and often slows communication. So, some solutions that we have for this is faster water testing, multilingual emergency alerts, and support for these smaller systems. So these are important to set in place to be able to address some of these equity and justice concerns. So my personal experiences and perspectives when it comes to this topic is that I'm a California resident, so I've been personally impacted by wildfire threats and water challenges in my community, whether that is water quality or just being able to be aware of the air quality when it comes to fires in the area. I also have firsthand prescribed burn experience, so I actually went out into the field during my undergraduate and we set off prescribed burns, and we learned a lot about the characteristics and behavior of fire and how to be able to read wind and certain brush to look for and all of that when it comes to fire. So I think that brings a very specific perspective when it comes to these kinds of issues that some people might not be able to bring to the table. And then working with diverse partners has also deepened my appreciation for collaborative, interdisciplinary approaches to wildfire and watershed resilience.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexander Pavlovich, and I'm here today to consult strategies for resilience and mitigation, specifically with mitigating and adapting to wildfires and preserving the watersheds that we depend on. According to current research, a majority of California's wildfires occur within key watershed environments. That means many of the same watersheds that provide clean drinking water to cities and communities are increasingly vulnerable to contamination, erosion, and to long-term ecological degradation. Climate change is extending dry seasons, and most fires now are human-caused. That mix is driving wildfires to occur more frequently and more destructively every year. I want to take a moment to look back, Just for a second. Long before Los Angeles became a concrete grid, the region was home to the Tongva and Chumash peoples. Their relationship with water was very sacred, and it was woven into every part of their lives, even becoming sacred sites for birth and burial rituals. These tribes also practiced something we now refer to as controlled burns. They understood that periodic, intentional burning could reduce the load of fuel from congested shrubs and overgrowth, and this ultimately prevented large-scale fires and kept ecosystems resilient. In reducing the risks of larger wildfires, they actually protected the watersheds that sustain them. But colonialization disrupted their knowledge system that they've had established for thousands of years. These practices are now suppressed, and their histories are erased. And what ended up replacing them was a culture of fire suppression, overdevelopment, and a disconnection from the land. Many people today no longer have these deeper relationships with water. Instead, water is seen as a commodity, and now it's often taken for granted, despite its scarcity in California. Reflecting on such a huge loss of knowledge and practice, it makes me wonder how much less damage might have occurred during the 2025 Palisades and Eaton fires, and all California wildfires for that matter, if we had simply preserved these traditional practices. Who would have known what the outcomes would have been? That's why boundary spanning work is critical now. We need to move forward sustainably. We need to bring together Indigenous knowledge, scientific research, and the lived experiences of impacted communities. Let's talk about why this matters so deeply to public health and why we can't afford to delay empirically proven and more resilient development. Cities in Southern California like Los Angeles are expanded deep into fire-prone foothills and mountains, and many communities are situated directly within these high-risk fire zones. And when urban wildfires appear, we aren't just dealing with trees that are burning. These fires consume electrical equipment, furniture containing PFAS plastics, PVC-coated wires, lithium-ion batteries, lead-based paint, and asbestos-laced construction materials. These let out all sorts of toxic chemicals that slide down from runoff and enter nearby watersheds, which ends up poisoning wildlife, damaging ecosystems, and creating serious long-term health risks for all the surrounding communities. This is why many residents end up being told that the water isn't safe to use or drink after wildfires. Affluent areas affected by fires may be able to find alternative sources of water, but residents with lower socioeconomic status may struggle to find any other option when they need it most. So what can we do? Many of the contaminants found in watersheds originate from burned buildings, so implementing and investing in fire-resilient homes and infrastructure is the way to go. That means using fire-resilient construction materials like fiber cement siding, metal roofing, and tempered glass. Another example is to implement underground power lines, which can reduce the risk of ignition by up to 98%, while also protecting electrical infrastructure during high winds and debris storms. Native landscaping is another key strategy. Fire-adapted, deep-rooted plants create defensible space, minimizing fuel loads, and support post-fire recovery by stabilizing soil and reducing the need for irrigation. So here's the opportunity. In communities that were recently impacted by wildfire or in areas where new development is on the horizon, they actually have a rare chance to rebuild smarter. The silver lining here is that the slate is effectively wiped clean in fire-burned areas, and we can design homes and infrastructure that are fire resilient, water conscious, and rooted in more sustainable practices. Doing this can help restore what we lost and create stronger communities that will be leading examples to other towns and protect the surrounding ecology and its crucial watersheds. Adopting these strategies for wildfires will minimize impacts on watersheds. This is a public health necessity and an environmental imperative. This work is about collaboration. The best solutions involve multiple perspectives coming across to challenge an issue and provide a very layered and nuanced approach that can better suit the specific needs of a community. I'm proposing a list of collaborators that involves fire scientists, public health professionals, engineers, indigenous leaders, local residents, nonprofits, and government agencies. Times are changing, and it's no longer enough to keep building things as they were. Every decision from here on out needs to consider how people, land, and water interact, and how these choices shape the health of downstream ecosystems and communities. The science gives us the data, and the stories make it personal. We don't have to rebuild the same way and repeat the same risks. We have better tools, better knowledge, and a deeper sense of what's at stake. The next step now is choosing to act on it together.
Thank you for listening.